Okay, this is a question from Official Standby Band, and you asked, how do you discover new music from new artists? Do you actually seek them out? And yeah, I do, because I'm constantly immersing myself in music. I love to listen to music. I've got a song in my head from the time I wake up. And for me, it's all about music discovery and finding new artists all the time. You want to be moved by a song and hear something that gets you excited. So for me, I'm always looking to discover new music. I've never lost that, since I was about 5 years old. No joke. I'm so grateful that I'm still going. But the passion really never ends for me. So how I discovered this, it could be, when I was listening to 88.5, the SoCal sound. It could be somebody shared it with me. It could be on a friend's playlist. It could be that I'm out somewhere and I see a band and hear a song that blows me away, or somebody says, hey, have you heard this new band? And so there are many different ways that I discover, but I do constantly look for new music because, it's my lifeblood. It's the thing that really matters the most to me is music and the people in my life that I love. Hey, Bonbon1423 asked me how I feel about the Replacements. I absolutely love them. I got to see them when Bob Stinson was still alive. I saw multiple shows over the years. I fell in love with the band when I heard I'm in Trouble, the 7-inch single, and the B-side, If Only You Were Lonely, which was a cool country song by Paul Westerberg. But, my other punk rock friends that I used to hang out with, they, had the first album, Sorry Ma, I forgot to take out the trash. And then I, of course, got the Hootenanny album, which I love things like Within Your Reach and Color Me Impressed. I'm in the Color Me Impressed documentary appreciating the Replacements. Like I said, I got to see them when Bob Stinson was still alive. You never knew what was going to happen at a Replacement show. That's what was so fun, dangerous, and punk rock about it. And I love all those albums like Let It Be, Tim, and of course, Pleased to Meet Me. I mean, even Don't Tell a Soul. All those records have great songs on them. Mookie asked me what my favorite record was from 1977, so I didn't really think about it, but I have to look at 77 as a year that bands like everything from, AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, to I loved the punk stuff that was coming out at that time. I'd already had the Ramones' first album in 76, but I loved the Sex Pistols singles that were coming out, like, God Save the Queen and Anarchy in the UK. And I was certainly, embracing the whole punk thing that was happening back then, like Blank Generation by Richard Hell and the Voidoids. There were so many cool things. 77, the Clash were almost there, but the Jam, they came out with In the City. The list goes on and on. There were so many great things. I was embracing the whole punk and new wave thing at that period of time. But I still loved, the rock bands that I loved, like AC/DC and Thin Lizzy. And so those are probably my favorite things from 77. It changes. The songs that you like and the albums that you like, there are albums that, I got tired of hearing on the radio back in the 1970s that I learned to love again because I didn't hear them for a while. So it gave me the chance to appreciate those records again. Some that were very, very popular and big rock records. I was able to clean that musical palette and go, this is why I love that song when I first heard it. So Hillary took a picture, asked me, what's my craziest rock star story? Well, there's quite a few, but I think walking in on some people, I was invited to a pajama party at the Playboy Mansion, which was very uncomfortable, getting into pajamas in the back of a car. It was a very odd night, but it was an interesting one, and I was looking for the bathroom, and I walked in on, a couple rock stars that I knew having sex with two playmates, and basically they just kept going. I said, sorry, guys, I'm looking for the bathroom. They're like, oh, it's around the corner there, and I went into the bathroom, and as I was leaving, they were waving at me while they were engaging in a sexual act. It was really crazy. Something I won't soon forget. It was very uncomfortable. This is from Roll Jelly Roll Morton, and you asked who went with the bald look first. me or Billy Corgan, I definitely was bald first because Billy used to have some really good hair. And, but it looks great on Billy. And, I guess it was one of those things where I was certainly the VJ least likely to. I mean, who would have thought that they would have put a short, bald, Irish, English, Italian guy from New Jersey who was overweight, but a love and passion of music. I certainly didn't had a face for radio. I wasn't, I didn't look like some of the more handsome people that were on MTV. But one thing I do think is people became more comfortable with baldness. And certainly, after that period of time, I'm not taking full credit for that, but there were a lot of musicians that were much more comfortable with their baldness. But I think I went bald, because I went bald really young, before Billy did. But he does look fantastic with a bald head. And so does Maynard Keenan from Tool and many of my other musician friends. So, I think it's cool. Sporting the bald head, it just gets cold in the winter. This one's from Ashtag Graham, and my favorite concert ever, which is such a hard one. I can tell you that one of the first concerts that made a massive impression on me that I loved was Queen doing a night at the opera at a theater. They hadn't even graduated to an arena yet, like Madison Square Garden. They wouldn't until the next tour. So in 1976, with nosebleed seats at the Beacon Theater in New York City, I saw Queen. And Freddie Mercury and Brian May, Roger Taylor and John Deacon at their best. I mean, they were incredible. So I was young and impressionable. I saw them. And in the same year, I saw David Bowie, Nassau Coliseum, the Station to Station tour, which was great. Saw Aerosmith doing Rocks, Bad Company doing Straight Shooter. And those were all really great. Another very memorable favorite concert for me was seeing The Clash in the fall of 1979, the night that Paul Simonon smashed his bass on stage that became the iconic album cover of London Calling. And I have a tattoo of that right on my shoulder here. So that was another one of my favorite concerts of all time. I loved U2's Zoo TV tour. Now, I saw them in clubs, and I saw them, as they rose throughout the years, U2. But I loved the Zoo TV tour, even though that was at stadiums, because there was something just really incredible about that. Some people have the gift of making you feel the music no matter where you are. And I'm from New Jersey. Bruce Springsteen's really great at that, and I'm a big fan of Bruce's as well. But, those are, Clash, Bowie, Queen, and U2 those are some of my favorites. And I forgot to say, the Smiths at the Beacon Theater as well for the Meatiest Murder Tour. I went there 2 nights in a row to see the Smiths on their second album tour, and it was really incredible. How you doing, Helen? Best, most memorable concerts I've experienced. I mentioned Queen Night at the Opera, David Bowie, Station to Station, U2 many times. I mean, I think I've got to remember also some of the most memorable were the ones that I saw when bands were still playing in nightclubs or little theaters. Like I saw the Police for $2 at the Walnut Street Theater in Philadelphia, and they didn't have enough songs, so they did Can't Stand Losing You Twice from their first album, Outlandos Timor, and they stretched out Roxanne for quite a while. And me and my friends could hear each other. We were in high school when it was played back on a Philadelphia radio station, and so that was incredible. So that weekend, we also saw Joe Jackson for the Look Sharp tour, and I snuck backstage, which was an amazing experience, too. And people were always nice to me at those things. I don't know why. I was just some punk kid making my way backstage. And, of course, as I mentioned, The Clash. Those shows were incredible. I loved The Jam when I used to go see them live. It's a very British band, Paul Weller's first band, but they were also so incredible. And, there's so many, it's so hard to say. But I will say that, going to see U2, also going to see Prince, there were just so many shows. I was very, very blessed and lucky to go see so many great bands. The Smiths, bands that are no longer around. And, at the time, you don't realize you're witnessing history. You're just living in the moment because you're just there in the acceleration of seeing a live concert. It's the most important thing. And I used to love to see all the bands. I mean, once I was old enough and I found a way through college radio to get into concerts for free by promoting the shows. I was at everything that I could possibly see. Going to see local bands to support them and every national or international act from the UK that would come through. PCP rocks. What do I love about being a radio DJ? Really, pretty much everything. I mean, this is all I ever wanted to do when I was a young child. You know, when I was coming up, I was a little boy in the late 1960s and the early 70s, and you know, there wasn't the amount of entertainment that was around at the time. So I dreamed of being able to be a DJ so I could play music for people and turn people on to new music. It was the most important thing for me. So it's amazing. I consider myself very lucky, very blessed that, you know, not only have I been doing it professionally for 40 years, but college radio before that for 4 years. And, you know, there weren't that many places to see or hear music. There were only a certain amount of stations. So, and I, you know, even when MTV came out, I never imagined that I would end up on there, but I'm grateful that I did. But being a radio DJ is the greatest thing in the world. What I love about it is when I get to talk about a great record that I love and tell a story behind that artist or something new, and I get to expose something new to people. Those are the things I love the most about being a DJ, because I love to tell stories and I love to turn people on to new artists. Will Befort asked me, who would win in a battle, Mike Ness from Social D or Milo Alkerman of the Descendants? You know, I don't think I'd ever see those guys fight because their friendships go way back. I don't know who'd win in that battle, but I do know that I love those guys. Mike Ness and I are friends for years, and I was also a huge Descendants fan and been friends with Bill Stevenson and those guys for an awfully long time, you know, and they're both important bands to me in different ways. You know, I recently did an interview with Mike Ness. It was the only one he wanted to do to talk about, you know, his tonsil cancer surgery, you know, before the holidays last year. And, you know, we have a long friendship. And I love Milo too. And, you know, Descendants were super important to me, like Social D. You know, when I heard, you know, Mommy's Little Monster and then all the records, Prison Bound, that came after that and continued to make great records. And for me, the Descendants, Milo Goes to College is one of the greatest punk records. And I love so many songs on there like Bikeage and Hope and My Age, and continued to love the Descendants and even the band All. You know, so yeah, I was just so happy that I could bring Milo on MTV because, you know, we thought they were done, of course, and, you know, when he came back to the band and I got to bring Descendants on 120 Minutes, that was a great moment for me.